Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Buddhist Center. Tonight, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good, begging for a mountain of blessings. And I feel so blessed to be able to share this commentary with you that Khenser Geshe Wandak was so generous with the Dharma and shared with us in many, many, many times. And then to be able to utilize Pabonka Rinpoche's small commentary to be able to understand it even more is such a blessing, because that small commentary really shows us how to navigate in four very specific ways this text. And if we know how to navigate it according to this small outline that Pabonka Rinpoche put together, which just has four categories, if we know how to navigate that, and we know kind of what the points of those categories are leading you to, and leading you out of, then you're able to understand how this incredible text with only 14 stanzas can, show the entire path to enlightenment contained in all of the sutras and tantras. That, it doesn't leave anything out in terms of the implicit subject matter that Lord Buddha taught. And the incredible part about it is that it puts it in the order that we will need to practice it in order to achieve the realizations that are presented in each of those stanzas. So we see that each of the realizations are foundations for the latter realizations, and we see how each of these stanzas contains such vital points and point at entire sections of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, and the great treatise on the stages of the tantric path to enlightenment. So we see how we can take these 14 stanzas and we can kind of move each of the stanzas over into Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, which is the root text for Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and how we can take these stanzas, move them over into Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment in the greatest fashion, and then the medium stages of the path to enlightenment in the medium fashion, and then the abbreviated stages of the path to enlightenment in the smallest fashion, the Lamrim Dudin, the Lamrim Nyamjur, the abbreviated stages of the path to enlightenment that Rinpoche taught us many times as well. So it's neat to be able to have been taught all this subject matter, many of us have been, and see how it all can, help, how each of the things that we've been taught helps us to illuminate other things that we've been taught, and how it's all necessary to understand in order for us to achieve the aim that I know that I have, which is complete freedom from suffering and the most happiness that I can get, because why not? And that is Buddhahood. And it's a doable kind of goal. It's an idea that not only is something that would be so great if it would be possible, it's something so great because it's possible. And it's possible because Buddha was so compassionate to come into our world and show us exactly what he did. In this case, he did in order to achieve the state that we'd love to achieve, that we'd love to be in right now. I would love to have no suffering. I would love to have the most amount of happiness possible. And there's an exact recipe that the Buddha came and showed us that will produce, the cooked food of me as a Buddha. So, and it's not, don't believe me because I'm telling you, or, because Khenser Geshe Wandak said it, and he seems like he really knew. See if it logically pans out. See if this mind can be transformed. See if this idea that the mind is the nature of clear light and unsullied, works. If it does, if suffering is permanent or impermanent, look at your own life and see if it's permanent or impermanent. See if your happiness is permanent or impermanent. See if there's degrees of happiness that you're experiencing. And if all of those things, you're able to say, yeah, the suffering I experience isn't always there, it changes. The happiness I experience isn't always there, it changes. There's degrees of happiness and degrees of suffering. If you can establish that, then you have established that there's impermanent phenomena that you're dealing with. And impermanent phenomena means that it's a caused thing. It means that it's momentary. And there's some sort of thing that's making it occur. So if we can get to the bottom of what's making it occur, then we can start to see how to turn up the degrees of happiness to 11, as they would say in Spinal Tap, how to get the degrees of happiness all the way up. And we can figure out how to take the degrees of suffering and turn them off. So this is what the Buddha was so kind to show us. And this is what we can logically establish, and that we must logically establish is possible for us to really put the effort in that it's going to take. We've got to believe it. And in order to believe it, unfortunately, it's going to take studying. It's going to take, studying very authentic material and vetting it very well. And then once we've even done that, it's taking that very, very vetted material, meaning vetting the teacher, vetting the material in terms of source, if it's a book, and then analyzing it and analyzing it and analyzing it and see if it tallies with reality, tallies with what would logically make sense. Not just believe it because you heard it or read it, believe it because it logically makes sense and it seems to tally with what you could arrive at if you were really, really paying attention to the details and looking at the signs and reasoning. If you could see that the subject and the thesis and the reason are all present there, and understand the forward and reverse pervasion related to all these statements the Buddha made, this will help you establish it as true and make you want to keep going, because you'll know what the Buddha said that you can have happen, and that is you can have this complete awakening occur. You can have this, complete awakening be your reality if you, get rid of these certain afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience that the Buddha did by recognizing the law of cause and effect and figuring out how to make that work in his complete favor, because of the recognition of dependent origination and the recognition that our mind is, creating all of our experiences are just dependently originating. And if we can somehow tweak that dependent origination into only the experiences that we want, then we're golden. Then we've got what we're looking for, no suffering and the most happiness possible. So we have to tweak the dependent origination by creating that which gives rise to a perfect mind, a perfect wisdom, a perfect love, perfect compassion, and gives rise to the next moment of perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, etc. And doesn't stop giving rise to that. It only dependently originates into something named as those things that I just mentioned. So we can make that decision when we start to realize that we're the ones really in control. There's no external force that's pushing us around. It's our mind that's controlling our experience. And if we can get control of our mind, and we can get control of the cause and effect, the causes that we're engaging in that are making us happy, and do more of those, and stop the causes of the things that are making us unhappy, and I'm talking at a great level in terms of future lives, etc., then we're on our way to doing what the Buddha did. And the Buddha did it with the same kind of mind that we have, one that's sullied, but isn't in the nature of being sullied. It's just like that now. It has adventitious stains. It's a messed up kind of thing with a diamond in the middle of purity. And we just have to get the messed up stuff out of it and recognize that this mind only knows, is clear and knows, what, karma imprints allow us to know because of dependent origination, because of the collection, because of cause effect, the collection of things that come together that then can be named as our omniscience when that's our resultant state. It will be, just the same as now we're a collection. Our mental consciousness is labeled as sullied. In the future, we will be, a pure being whose mental consciousness is labeled as unsullied. But there won't be any inherently existent Buddha, just like there's no inherently existent us. And that's why we can transform into the Buddha. And that's why the Buddha can go from bliss to bliss to bliss to bliss, because of dependent origination, because of this lack of a permanent, unitary, independent self that's there, the lack of some kind of autonomous, substantial reality that's there, the lack of an inherently existent or truly existent mind that's there. Because that's like that. The material that we have is empty of inherent existence. It can be transformed. If it wasn't empty of inherent existence, we'd be stuck. And because of emptiness, it's all possible, as Nagarjuna says. So before I go on any further, although I would really love to, let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture and see if we can get our minds into a realistic place where we aren't running at things that are drawing us because we're attached to them and we find them attractive. So our minds are so busy and we're not pushing away things that we hate so much because we find that they're disgusting or unattractive. And we've come to those conclusions out of exaggeration. And this exaggeration makes our minds go, whoop, boop, 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 boop. I really need this. I really hate that. One or the other. And we spend so much time with this exaggeration of the details of the object, exaggerating these details. First, we believe this thing truly exists, inherently exists, as it does from its own side, and we exaggerate from that place the details of the object. We say, oh, it's so attractive, it's so good, oh, it's so awful, it's so bad. And from that place, from that improper mental conduct, then these afflictions arise, and then all of this mess occurs. So what's happening when we come into a teaching a lot of times, that process is in full swing. Even though we're showing up here to make that process stop, the process is still in full swing. Maybe we've turned it down a little, but what we're doing at the beginning of this teaching is trying to turn it down, 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 to get it to the point where we could deal with that third kind of poison, that ignorance, that's just kind of that hum of wrong idea about everything around you that allows for that explosion of this exaggeration to occur. If we can get ourselves quiet enough to start to hear the hum, we're not listening. It's not an ear consciousness, but I think you know what I mean in terms of our mind say, oh, wait a second. Is everything the way that it appears? Even the things that I find neutral. How does it appear to me? We can get our minds calm enough to start asking those questions. We start engaging in that which will give rise, will allow for us to be liberated. So that's why we calm our minds down, because if we're running at things, we're not calm enough to look at that ignorance, and we're not calm enough to really start to generate the good motivations and accumulate the merit that we're going to learn about is necessary for us to become Buddhas in a really, really thorough fashion. It'll be just kind of tainted by our conceptuality, and it's going to be almost impossible not to have some of it tainted by conceptuality. So let's try to lessen it as much as possible. So 7-point Vairocana posture. And again, the way we always do it, the focal object is going to be the breathing in, breathing out, and the counting, and the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni in a static form, beautiful, about arm length away, thumb size, eye height, just imagining beautiful and radiant, but static. So breathing in, out, counting in Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation, whilst in the 7-point Vairocana posture. And then we'll start to build ourselves into beings that are more like Buddhas. We're so fortunate to have met with Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings. And before we get started, before we go any further, I'd like to read an excerpt from Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the Tantric path, because we know that all of the teachings in that text are also contained in the foundation of all good qualities that we're studying. And we'll eventually get to the section on Vajrayana, on Tantrayana. And also I'd like to read it because Jeffrey Hopkins translated this particular introduction. It's the beginning of the text. And Lama Tsongkhapa establishes first, only the conqueror's teaching is the entrance for those wishing liberation. So I'd like to just read a couple of pages of that because we find here the establishment of how we take what we've heard in the teaching. So, okay, Jeff said this. Khensa Rinpoche said this. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said this. Oh, I read that Maitreya said that. Then what do we subject the material to? What is it that we do? So I thought that I'd start with this. And Jeffrey Hopkins was so kind to translate so many things with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And we would be so lost without his translation. So his surgery is tomorrow. I pray that all obstacles are removed, and may we rejoice in this beautiful translation of, it's right at the beginning. It's not the very beginning, but at the beginning of this great text. So the heading is only the conqueror's teaching is the entrance for those wishing liberation. Once one begins analyzing the great aims of oneself and others, there is no satisfaction with merely the system revealed by the elders of the world, the achievement of happiness and avoidance of suffering as long as one lives. The entrance for those seeking the higher features of future lives and above, liberation from cyclic existence and the attainment of omniscience, is only the teaching of the blessed Buddha, whose banner flies over the three realms. He is the great base of the welfare of all beings. The mere movement of his breath in and out is a great means providing medicine for sentient beings. For he attained his aspiration to highest enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and through the great waves of deeds of the bodhisattvas that are Buddha's children that are induced by this altruistic mind of enlightenment. The mind of enlightenment is a cherishing of others more than oneself, a source of talk that accords not at all with the world, since most other persons find it difficult even to take delight in it from the depths of their heart. Marchetta Ashvagosha and Dignaga's interwoven praise says, I dwell in an ocean of cyclic existence of depth without limit. The frightful sea monsters of desire and so forth are eating my body. Where will I go for refuge now? If one has intelligence, one would take refuge in him, the one who has not any defects, who in every way has all auspicious attributes. It would be right to praise and respect him and to abide in his teaching. Nevertheless, Kapila and the others, even though they did not know the path of liberation, were maddened by the poison of pride and claimed to be teachers, wishing to teach a suchness of phenomena in a way other than that taught by the Sugatas. So this is an ancient Indian non-Buddhist school. A lot of times the Samkhya tradition, we would say Kapila propagated and so forth. But you can look into that when you look at the non-Buddhist ancient Indian traditions that are studied within Buddhist tenets. They wrote many books that were made to appear like a correct path and advised those wishing liberation. However, only the completely perfect Buddha, his teaching, and those properly learning it as the teacher, the path, and friends on the journey to liberation for those wishing liberation. Teachers, teachings, and their students, other than that, these are not. You must gain unmoving conviction in the source of refuge. Thereby, you will realize that only the subduer's teaching is the entrance for those wishing liberation. Those with little force of mind will determine this merely through an assumption, but those with strong minds should seek firm conviction induced by valid cognition. Otherwise, it will only be an assertion. Sham Karapati's praise of the supra-divine says, I am not a partisan of Buddha. I do not hate Kapila and the others. I hold as a teacher only him whose word possesses reason. You should forsake partisanship and hatred for the systems of your own and others' teachers and analyze which of them provide good and bad explanations. Then you should adopt only that which shows the means of attaining the two aims of the trainees: high status within cyclic existence, a good rebirth in the high realms, humans and so forth, and definite goodness of liberation and omniscience. And provide correct proofs. The scriptures of the two systems are what are to be analyzed to find which does or does not bear the truth. Thus, it would not be suitable to cite them as a proof of their own truth. Only reasoning distinguishes what is or is not true. So just by saying, quoting some great holy being, so it must be true, isn't enough. Only reasoning distinguishes what is or is not true. The manner of reasoning is this: it is indeed true that in terms of the order in which they are generated in a person's continuum, one first achieves the temporary attainment of high status and later definite goodness. However, when scriptures showing the two aims of beings are analyzed to find whether they are false or not, one first establishes through reasoning that a system is not deceptive about the principal aim of definite goodness. Then one can infer from this that the system is not deceptive with respect to the secondary attainment of high status. So first, you're positing that it's possible to achieve liberation, and then asserting that what Buddha says about achieving the higher realms is true. It's very interesting. So we'll leave it there. So now just imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni explodes into the entire merit field, all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, imagining Khyentse Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, all the holy beings who've cared for us, who are caring for us, imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Khyentse Gen Lobsang Gyatso, and imagining Dema Locha Rinpoche, and imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu, and Umzala Geshe Aga, and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin, and Jeffrey Hopkins, imagining Ani Tupten Chodron and Shadow Rinpoche, all these holy beings, imagining Pare Rinpoche. Please keep Pare Rinpoche in your thoughts, imagining him there in the merit field, in the space in front of you, all of these holy beings. Imagine the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Maitreya, from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basu Bandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga and Vimukta Sena and Hari Bhadra and Shakya Prabha and Guna Prabha and Lama Salimpa and Atisha, the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Chandrashita and Baba Vega and Kamala Shila, and again imagining Lama Salipa and imagining Lama Atisha, all those holy beings in the space in front of you, the beings of the lineage of blessings, Vajradhara in the space in front of you, and the Master Saraha and Machipa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, all these holy beings looking on you with loving eyes. Imagine them looking at you the same way if you were gazing into the eyes of His Holiness the Dalai Lama or Khyentse Geshe Wandak or Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Imagining the way that those beings looked at you with loving eyes, and imagining all these beings of the merit field are looking upon you with this great loving eyes, and just so impressed with the fact that you're here today and engaging in exactly what they came here to show you how to do. Imagining Atisha passing the entire Lamrim lineage down to Dron Tompa and the three old Kadampa lineages, imagining the holy beings of the Nyingmas such as Padmasambhava, Sakya Pandita, Satya Kunga Nyingpo, imagining the Kaji lineage, all the Karmapa and so forth, the Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa and Kirtub J and Joseph J, and Basu Chuji Jetson, and Pension Sun Andrapa, and Jayan Sheba, and Gonju Jimmy Wampo, and Janja Rilpi Dorje, and the seventh Dalai Lama, imagining all these holy beings that we're so connected to because we're connected to the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and we're connected to Khyentse Geshe Wandak's teachings, and he utilized all these beings' commentaries, and utilize all the sutras and tantras in order to enable us to understand the stages of the path to enlightenment that the Buddha was so kind to show us almost 2,600 years ago. Imagining all the beings of the highest yoga tantra, yogic tantra, performance tantra, and action tantra in the space in front of you. We're so blessed to meet with the Vajrayana teachings that are so rare to have. All of the Buddhas that will come, the 1,000 Buddhas that will come, only a few will teach Vajrayana, and Buddha Shakyamuni came to teach Vajrayana because we have the karma to connect with the Vajrayana teachings. Don't just think, oh, this particular Buddha was so much kinder than other Buddhas. No, we have the karma to be able to meet with these teachings of Vajrayana. Just like the moon can't be reflected if there isn't the body of water to reflect it. If there's a million bodies of water, there can be a million reflections. But if there's no bodies of water, there can be no reflections. And we happen to have that karma that creates a condition for us to be able to hear Tantrayana. So we are here at a time where there is Tantrayana, and we're here at a time where we meet with Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings, whose teachings include all the teachings, not only the perfection vehicle, but the tantric vehicle as well. So rejoice and be so happy that we have these teachings in our world and that we have access to them, because so many eons will pass where there will be no Tantrayana. That will be in this specific world. The Buddhas will be teaching the perfection vehicle only, and one will have to then meet somehow in a special way with these teachings that will be so necessary, and it will take much longer than meeting with them directly and being able to integrate the path. So rejoice and be so happy that we're so blessed to be able to have this karma to meet with the Vajrayana. Imagining the beings of the 35 Buddhas in the space in front of you, that power, those powerful bases of purification that we can make prostrations to and purify our negativities. We can apply the poor opponent powers, and when we apply the power of antidote, we can use these 35 Buddhas of confession, these incredible 35 Buddhas to help us to connect, to disconnect from the non-virtues that we've engaged in. We can use them as powerful antidotes that can get rid of eons of non-virtue, and imagining all the protector deities. So we have all these holy beings in the space in front of you. Now imagine, because we want to become Buddhas, we recognize that we have to work for the sake of all sentient beings. In order to become a Buddha, we must become a Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is someone who's generated in his or her mind this desire to become a Buddha. And it isn't just this idea, I'd like to become a Buddha. It's day and night saying, I must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And it's working for sentient beings day and night, and doing whatever it takes day and night to become a Buddha as quickly as possible, to become the most reliable guide in the universe. So this is what we will have to do in order to achieve our aims, in order to have bliss, in order to have the 100% happiness we want, in order to have the 100% freedom from suffering that we crave. We are going to have to generate this kind of mind that wishes day and night to become a Buddha, and works day and night for the sake of others, and that has arisen because we've generated renunciation ourselves, and day and night we want to get out of cyclic existence, and identified exactly what suffering is, and know what causes it, and kind of that there is a pathway that will lead to the cessation of it. We've established it through logic and reasoning in our own mind, just like I just pointed out, that we must establish it with logic and reasoning. We've established it that it's possible that we can get out of suffering because we've looked at the Four Noble Truths ourselves, and then we say, oh, we must get out of cyclic existence. And then we recognize that from that renunciation, we see that everybody else has that same problem we do, and we turn that renunciation into kind of an empathy, and then love and compassion, and then generate bodhicitta. So when we do that, we will work for the sake of others day and night. And the way that we will work for others is by teaching them the truth, teaching them what they'll need to transform themselves into the state that we want, that we know everybody wants the same thing, no suffering and 100% happiness. So we will work for them, and we will show them the teachings. We will bring them to the teachings. We will do whatever each and every single sentient being needs to have done. We will do it in terms of getting them just a little more truth, just a little more truth. So just imagine that you're the kind of being that could actually do that now. We'll read about in these Bodhisattva vow texts about what bodhisattvas can start to do and emanate and working for sentient beings, and how we could actually start to work for more and more and more and more beings, kind of from one place, working for more than one being because of the power of emanation. But so let's imagine we can do it now. Bring all the beings in the universe here who are not Buddhas, and imagine you're bringing them here for one reason, so that they can become Buddhas. So imagine you bring the hell, hungry ghost animals, all the human demigods and gods. Every single human being in the universe, imagine they're all here and that you're leading them in the prayers and that you're leading them here so that they can get into their ears whatever they need to hear to get rid of their afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. That's the motivation. That's why we're here, to get rid of these negativities. We're here to become Buddhists for the sake of all sentient beings, but we recognize that the reason we're here is empty of inherent existence. We're empty of inherent existence. Sentient beings are empty of inherent existence. The merit field's empty of inherent existence. Action, agent, and object, all three are empty of inherent existence. So while we're setting these motivations, we should recognize these three spheres, recognize the emptiness and the nature of reality, the nature of everything that we're doing, so we don't create another dimension of cyclic existence that we're just attached into, that is not creating the results that we're wishing for. So setting this motivation, imagining that we've led all sentient beings here. Now we will recite the Heart Sutra. Again, when we recite this Heart Sutra, imagine that all obstacles are being removed from all sentient beings. Any sentient beings that you're specifically thinking about who have obstacles, imagining that their obstacles are being obliterated, are just being removed by the power of this truth. That Pari Rinpoche's obstacles are being removed. Jeffrey Hopkins' obstacles are being removed through the power of this truth. And any other beings who are having obstacles or have obstacles, think that they're just anything that they're having, any problems that they're having are just being just completely quelled by the power of this truth. And what is this truth? This explicit truth of the nature of reality, the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, the lack of even self-characteristics at a conventional level of all phenomena, the lack of inherent existence of everything, lack of objective intrinsic existence of everything, all phenomena. Also, and then implicitly talking about the five paths, the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And we say five paths if we're talking about it from the Mahayana perspective, but we have to keep in mind that there are three vehicles that could make for a total of 15 paths. Here, vehicle, solitary realizer vehicle, and the Mahayana vehicle that have their own perspective paths, five paths. But here, this is a Mahayana sutra. So we're emphasizing the five Mahayana paths: path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And then the Bodhisattva grounds that begin, the first Bodhisattva ground beginning on the path of seeing, and then also the first Bodhisattva ground being on the path of meditation. And then one goes through all 10 Bodhisattva grounds on the path of meditation, gets rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, and then this all occurs, and once that final subtle level of obstruction to omniscience is removed, then the path of no more learning is achieved. So this is implicitly taught within it in the sutra, that the mantra Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha is where we find kind of this implicit point, if we know the commentaries on this being made, the first gate being a path of accumulation, second gate being the path of preparation, paragate being the path of seeing, parasamgate being the path of preparation, and bodhisoha being the path of no more learning. And interestingly, you'll see there's 5 sentences that lead up to that mantra. Therefore, the great mantra, prajnaparamita, etc. You can count them later in your spare time. So let's make sure that we recognize the power of this truth. What is this truth that's being presented? Everything that you need to know to become a Buddha. Everything. And emphasizing at this second turning of the wheel of Dharma, this definitive point the Buddha made, that nothing, not even the smallest particle, nothing, your mind, the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, the first, second, third turning of the wheel of Dharma, nothing has inherent existence, but it all exists conventionally, subjectively. And we have to be able to differentiate between doesn't exist and doesn't inherently exist, doesn't intrinsically exist. And the only way we'll do that is by studying, and studying authentic material with authentic teachers. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard. Once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times, by means of Prajaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth since there is no deception. The Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate buddhi soha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son or noble family, thus it is, O son or noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. I prostrate to the gatherings of Dakinis and the three chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space by your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation. Look after your practitioners like a mother looks after her child. By the truth of the existence of the three jewels, may all inner and outer hindrances and adversities be overcome. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. May they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from all adverse conditions to the Dharma, and may we obtain all circumstances conducive to the Dharma. May there be auspiciousness, happiness, and well-being here right now. Baba Gonja Zonji Gaye Dembeja Jishi, Labadoji Mebadoji, Shewadoji, Dagi Baji Medubeja Donji Shedin Goye Soha, Gerin Jonja Jeja Shewa, Don Midon de Jonja Joa, Don Tomba Donji and Bonzon Zonjoji, Daji de Jonjan Dade Le Sho. Make a mandala offering as request for teaching. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas High, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Zanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu danyi jazu ji dagi jije ji be sananji drola benje zanje druba jo sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu danyi jazu ji dagi jije ji be sananji drola benje zanje druba jo sanje jadan zaji janan la Janju badu danyi jazu ji dagi juje ji be zananji drola benje zanje drubajo. This by great compassion you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings. Okay, so wonderful. What I'd like to, what I would like to do now is read the source of all my good, all of it. And then we'll go right back to where we were, exactly in the text in terms of the stanza. And in, yeah, I don't have my, okay, so let's do this. So I'll read the whole source, and then we'll go to the exact place that we are, which is where we talk about the three moralities, just to kind of refresh everyone. And we were talking about, the moralities of abandoning non-virtue, and then we'll get into the commentary when we get to the commentary. But let's just first read the source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortune and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. So we're so fortunate to be able to look at this text, and it's important for us to always know what this text says. So we see there's only 14 stanzas. We say Pabonka Rinpoche says there's 4 major headings of these 14 stanzas. The first one is, of course, the very root of the path, which is how to take a teacher on and serve him or her properly. So the very root of the path. This is the first stanza. Then Pabonka says, from there on, we now have many stanzas that show us how to train our mind once we've taken on a teacher. So we see, basically stanzas number 2. So stanza number 1 deals with the first category, and then stanzas number 2 through 12 deal with, okay, what do I do? Now I have a teacher, what do I do? So stanzas 2 through 12 deal with that. And then the third category, requests so that you can attain all the favorable conditions for succeeding in the path and stop all the circumstances that might prevent you from doing so. That third category we find in the 13th stanza. And then a prayer that in all your future lives you may be taken under the care of a Lama, and we gain the strength to reach the final end of the various levels and paths we find in stanza 14. So it's always good for us. I know this is a review. We've gone over these things a lot. It's not the first time you've heard this, but I think it's important. And you should really be able to, just look at this and say, okay, this is where that goes. That's where that goes. This is the small scope. This is the medium scope. This is the great scope. And once you can do that, it's like being able to taste food instead of hearing about how food tastes. You're able to, do something with it. The Dalai Lama says, when you don't analyze and you don't have enough kind of scriptural knowledge, you're very limited, like someone who doesn't have teeth. They're very limited in what they can eat, what they can chew. They can't really chew it up. And when we have a wealth of scriptural knowledge, and we've used analysis and not, become sectarian and partisan and said, oh, we didn't like the religion we were brought up in, so we're just going to pick a new one that sounds more, kind of fancy, sounds exotic, and not really establish any reason why we've decided to abandon something that might work perfectly well for our continuum, that might have, points that are exactly like what Buddha stated, because we know His Holiness the Dalai Lama says all religions are rooted in compassion. So we need to analyze it. It's not saying, just like we find in this quote in the beginning of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the Tantric path, I'm not this partisan person. I'm only interested in truth. Whatever washes out with that, whosever's name it is that's telling that truth, truth is true. It's not that Buddha made up something. The Buddha discovered something that is the truth about reality. It's not something that is invented. It's something that was always there. Everything's always been empty of inherent existence. Putting others' needs before your own has always made you feel better than being selfish. It's just how it works. It's just something that the Buddha figured out that, oh, this is how things work. Cause and effect, this is how things work. It wasn't something, exotic and mysterious that, that only the Buddha could know. It's something the Buddha discovered and then shared with the world. And then we can make that knowledge our knowledge. It's not something that's the Buddha's knowledge only. It's the Buddha knows what's true. So when we do, we have the same working kind of basis of mind as the Buddha does. Once we know really what is true. And that's once we're not even fooled by appearances or apprehension. And we can simultaneously see conventional and ultimate truth. And only the Buddha can do that. And we have to, though, establish that that's the case. If we're going to say, oh, I take refuge in the Buddha, I go for refuge to the Buddha, I put my spiritual monopoly in the hands of this being that maybe I just ran to because I saw, it seemed like a statue or a picture of something that I was kind of attracted to. And I, had some kind of distaste for something that happened when I was younger with my own religion. It's wonderful that you have these imprints, that you're connecting with the Lord Buddha, but the reason for saying, oh, now I'll go for refuge to that being has to be founded in kind of analysis and logic, because we won't do what's going to be necessary if we don't believe it enough. We have to really believe it. And blind faith only gets us so far. And I've seen in my own life, blind faith smashed to pieces by logic and reasoning. Rituals I did in my own life. Doesn't matter what I'm even talking about. Things I did and connected to in my own life that I felt they felt so good and were so true, but they were merely me connecting to something that was just another form of contamination that had a guise of something else. And I engaged in these rituals, doesn't matter what they were, for a long period of time. And it was interesting to see that all it took was just a little bit of logic and reasoning to show how absurd this thing that I was relying on in my own life as my saving kind of grace was. But it was only through a process of logic and reasoning and analysis that allowed me to arrive at that. And what happens is, unfortunately, is we go way too far in another direction. We arrive at it and we say, oh, the Buddha alone taught the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha alone taught how to get rid of self-grasping ignorance. So this is it. But the Buddha alone didn't teach love. The Buddha alone didn't teach compassion. The Buddha alone didn't teach, I think you get it. So we have to be very careful when we say, oh, I don't want to listen to, something someone else says because they're not the Buddha. Because Khenser Geshe Wandak was so clear to me handfuls of times. He looked at me so many times and says that a scholar can learn from a baby, but an idiot can't learn from a scholar. And I really took heed of that we can learn something from everyone. And even if it's what to abandon, even if it's analyzing and seeing that isn't what I want in terms of results, that, someone who's very selfish and self-centered, they don't seem very happy, even if it's that. Okay, so we've been looking at, we've made our way through the small scope and made our way through this medium scope, or more important, it's important to call it the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. We say shared in common with because we know that these aren't just, these are what people who are small practice, these are what people who are medium practice, and these are who people are fancy practice and great practice. We know that people who are medium practice the small too, and people who are great practice the medium and the small, and must have these as the foundations. We even see in terms of morality, in terms of ethical discipline, behavior, that the earlier behaviors that are common to everyone serve as foundations to the specific individual vows that you take in terms of individual liberation vows, bodhisattva vows, and tantric vows. We see them serving as foundations for one another, as we mentioned last week and the week before. But you must know this. We must know. This is why Lord Atisha says in The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, he makes that statement about the individual liberation vow and the connection to the bodhisattva vow. And we know that we have to understand the commentary and understand that no, this doesn't mean that you have to have an individual liberation vow to take a bodhisattva vow, but it makes you have the most suitable basis possible for the bodhisattva vow if you have an individual liberation vow. The Tathagata spoke of 7 kinds of vows of individual liberation vow. The best of these is the glorious pure conduct, said to be the vow of the fully ordained person. And right before that, it says those who maintain any of the 7 kinds of vows of individual liberation have the ideal prerequisite for the bodhisattva vow, not others. So others don't have an ideal situation in their mind because they don't have the form of the Pradamoksha vow. So we know that in the Madhyamika Prasangika school, the Pradamoksha vow, the individual liberation vow, is actually an inner form that doesn't reveal itself like we could just see it, that forms in our consciousness, and it's a vow. And it stays there until we die. And then when we die, it goes away. It doesn't carry on to our future life. So we see that this form in our mind makes an ideal condition for the bodhisattva vow. And the ideal condition for this individual liberation vow is someone who has a mind that is abandoning the 10 non-virtuous activities, who's engaging in the vows of refuge and so forth, doing those things that everyone, the Buddha said, should do, whether or not you have vows. It doesn't matter. These are common things everyone should do. So we see foundation, 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 small scope, foundation for the medium scope, small and medium scope, foundation for the great scope. The 10 non-virtues, foundation for pradamoksha vows, pradamoksha vows, foundation for bodhisattva vows, bodhisattva vows being foundations for tantric vows even saying you have to keep these other vows. So it's very interesting. You see the connectivity, and I think it's important that you always are looking for those things when because you know how to practice then. You don't know how to practice if you don't know how to put it all together. They're just words, and they're not going to change your mind. They're not going to make you evolve into an awakened one if you don't know how to work with it and you don't personalize it. So last time we were talking about the ethical discipline. So we have 3 moralities, 3 categories: the category of restraint from faulty action, the category of accumulation of virtue, and the category of working for others. So we talked about the ethical discipline, which is the restraint from faulty action, and we talked about the different kinds of vows and so forth. The kind of common things everyone would do even without a vow, the abandoning the 10 non-virtuous activities, just like everything that I just said before. I'm not going to go over it again. I just said it twice. So those common things. So these are the ethical disciplines of abandoning faulty actions. And these are the various ways in which one can do it, the common things, and then the 3 sets of vows. Then we get into the ethics, which is the accumulation of virtue. So it says here that, hold on one second. Let me move forward in the text. So we went over the first one, I think the last time or time before that. Where we talked about that, ideally you could seek physical seclusion. So the first accumulation, so I'll just read the first one again. So it's the first accumulation of virtue is to strengthen our practice of the highest higher trainings, the ethic, concentration, and wisdom, and develop the 3 kinds of wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. So this engaging in these things accumulates virtue. It's not saying perfected because you'd be a Buddha. It's meaning doing this. You're accumulating virtue. We know that we have to accumulate all of these accumulations of method and wisdom in order to become Buddhas. So we're accumulating through this. So this creates virtue, it says. So we went over that first one last time. So let's get to the second one. I want to make sure we get through these. The second principal way of creating virtue is in relation to special needs or sources of merit, which include those who have helped us, such as our parents, those with excellent qualities, for instance, our spiritual teachers, and those who arouse our compassion, such as the sick. We accumulate virtue not just by giving them material gifts, but by also showing them respect. We do this in relation to our parents and teachers by not behaving casually in their presence, and by, for example, greeting and receiving them warmly, inquiring about their well-being, offering them a nice place to sit, rising to our feet when they enter a room, seeing them out when they leave. So we saw all of this. You see when there's attendance of the Dalai Lama. You see when Rinpoche, Khyentse Geshe Wandak had an attendant, or someone was attending to him, or when he'd walk in the room, we would rise. These are all things that are, accumulating virtue. And we know that it's said that, yes, bodhisattvas initially on the path of accumulation first work more at restraint from non-virtue, but the bodhisattvas are always working at all 3 of these. There's just more of an emphasis at the earlier stages on restraint than the middle stages on accumulation of virtue, and then the latter stages of working for the sake of sentient beings, because they get better at working for sentient beings because they've gotten this better restraint of non-virtue, and they've accumulated so much virtue that their higher perceptions and so forth are achieved. As Lord Atisha says, and the lamp for the path to enlightenment. You could, in class today, one of the concentrations, a single pointed concentration of being able to hear something and memorize it the moment you hear it. Imagine if you had that kind of, single pointed concentration. You could, as a bodhisattva, how much you could learn, how much information you could take in to be able to help others. So this is why we're doing this, is to be able to accumulate the things that are necessary to be of most use in the end. And as we accumulate merit, our kind of obstacles are being removed as we accumulate them. All living beings should naturally be treated with respect, but our parents are singled out for the mention here because they have given us our body. Our spiritual teachers are mentioned because they show us the way to happiness. Nursing the sick, providing them with medicines, cheering them up, comforting and supporting those who are grief-stricken, and in whatever ways we can, helping those who suffer, are actions for which are ample opportunities. However, they only become a bodhisattva's creation of virtue if they are done with the altruistic intention to attain enlightenment for the sake of all living beings. So unless you're a bodhisattva, they're not bodhisattva activities, but we're doing it so that we're emulating bodhisattvas. We're acting as if we're doing it in a contrived way so that it transforms into the real thing. So in our daily lives, we should do this. And we know that we can accumulate virtue in relation to the merit field also. That's why we do what we do. And we imagine all the gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas. And we imagine we make the 7-limb prayer, we make prostrations, and we make offerings. All of this is accumulating virtue. The third way of creating virtue is developing a liking for good qualities and for those who have them. We remind ourselves to thank and praise those who teach us correctly about the true nature of reality, and to appreciate and praise those who possess good qualities. When we say, oh, that was very kind of you, we're reminding our minds to be kind. And we're also making a sentient being feel good. And we know that we create all of our virtue and non-virtue in relation to sentient beings and in 3 jewels. And we're conditioning our minds to be kind. The Buddha's the kindest, so we're becoming more like him or her. When we hear others, speak well of them. It says when we hear others. When we hear others, speak well of them. We should add our own praise without envy. Through this, we can create as much virtue as those who possess those praiseworthy qualities. So here's a little trick that Lama Tsongkhapa tells us about rejoicing in the excellent qualities of others, that we accumulate vast stores of merit depending on what kind of level they're at. If they're equal to us, we won't get into the details. I don't have the commentary in front of me and I don't want to make a mistake, but we accumulate like large amounts of merit. We can't get all of it if it's like a really special holy being, but we get portions of it. And it's huge amounts of merit just by rejoicing, of the, kind of the same as if we were doing the thing. We get portion of that merit. So imagine Lama Tsongkhapa made 1 million prostrations. Oh, that was so amazing. And really mean it? Wow, I just got some of that. I just got some of that accumulation. That's what it's talking about. Through this, we can create as much virtue as those who possess the praiseworthy qualities. Training ourselves to rejoice in others' admirable accomplishments and abilities is an essential bodhisattva activity. So we think, oh, we're bodhisattvas and we're going to be the best and we're going to show you all. No, we're going to praise you also and tell you you're the best too, and guide you and take you by the hand and love you and have compassion for you and make you feel good. Do whatever I need to do to make you feel good, as long as it's going to help you. That's the kind of thing that makes the Buddha the one who's the most reliable guide, because the Buddha knows if it's going to help for sure or not. We're a little handicapped. We're stifled by our ignorance. And even bodhisattvas on some of the higher grounds don't know as much as the Buddha. We even know that, some of the arhats couldn't answer some of the questions that people ask them because they weren't the Buddha. So the fourth source of virtue is patience. When we are harmed, 2 approaches are helpful. One is to think that our own past actions, we have set ourselves up as a target for this harm. So slowing down the process, like we talk about a lot. Okay, someone's yelling at me. They're yelling at me because I'm here. And I've created some sort of condition for them to do it. They couldn't have yelled at me unless I have created a cause to be yelled at. So here we set ourselves up as a target for this. We are the ones who set ourselves up. We're feeling like, oh man, you're doing this to me. No, we set ourselves up for this. This yelling person, we set ourselves up for them to show up in a previous life when we engaged in some sort of non-virtue that was concordant with the result of a yelling person. So I must have yelled at someone. I might have only yelled at them a little, and now I'm getting yelled at a lot because of the magnification of karma that we studied. When we know all this information, we can weave in and out of this stuff so freely because of Khenser Geshe Wandok's kindness. We can just weave and weave and weave through it. And we're so fortunate, aren't we? Aren't we so fortunate? And I know that while I do this, you're all following me. It's not like I'm doing this special thing that I got. You're weaving with me because of Khenser Geshe Wandok's kindness. I know you are. Okay. Our present experience is the fruition of those actions in the past. The other approach is to remember that the person who is inflicting the harm is dominated by the demon of disturbing emotions is out of control. Just like when we suddenly, blurt out something, we're like, why did we just do that? We were out of control because we have this self-grasping ignorance that gives rise to this self-cherishing attitude. We have these two demons driving our minds, driving our experiences, just like them. The demons that are making us do what we don't want to do are the demons making them do what they don't want to do. Self-grasping ignorance, self-cherishing attitude. So we're recognizing, wow, this is happening because I've set this up, and they're doing this because they have the same problem I have. So we're starting to have this empathy, this understanding that this equality that we have between self and others has. You and I have the same thing going on. It stinks, right? Isn't this awful? This sounds awful. Doesn't that feel awful, yelling? You and I have the same thing going on. And why am I getting yelled at? Because at some point I yelled because I have self-grasping ignorance and self-cherishing attitude. So I'm experiencing this, and they're going to experiencing a yeller in the future. And that's when the compassion starts to happen. If you're advanced, where you start to say, oh, this feels so bad. This is what they have coming. But because of the magnification of karma, it's going to feel worse for them than what it feels for me right now. So you start to be able to understand reality more and stop back and you start becoming less of a child. Our present experience is a fruition of those actions. These emotions are not an integral part of their nature, but something that temporarily overwhelms them and from which they can become free. The mind's the nature of clear light and unsullied. The stains, the defilements that I have, that they have, adventitious. Add-ons, not part of the nature. For bodhisattvas, neither anger nor the wish for revenge are acceptable responses. On the contrary, they respond with love and the compassionate wish to help those who are harmful, to throw off the burden of these disturbing emotions. Even if we are not yet bodhisattvas, thinking in these ways can help us to remain calm in potentially explosive situations. So here the advice is, forget about, oh, this is going to make you more like a Buddha. This could make you have like less kind of problems tomorrow in your life. Like tomorrow, if you could somehow use these tools the Buddha taught, you could have some potentially less explosive situations. So if you could, kind of keep your cool, I actually heard Geshe Dorje Damdu say, chill out today. If you could keep your cool and not explode, imagine what kind of tool that would be. Because as exploding, I understand how you have to sometimes be firm. But has out of control anger ever been the firm point you were trying to make, and that would do something for that person? No. It's usually just hurt them somehow. But the firm that the Bodhisattva gets into, even if he or she is yelling, how could you have done such a thing, is straight from love and compassion. It's from the opposite of anger, love. The antidote or the opponent of anger, love. So it doesn't mean that you become this person as a bodhisattva that doesn't respond, that doesn't react. It just means that all of your reactions, all of everything that you're doing is coming from a place that wants every single being in the universe to have happiness, the causes of happiness, and be free from suffering, the causes of suffering. And you've taken it upon yourself the task of making sure that happens. So very interesting when we look at, exactly what we're trying to do and how we're trying to accomplish it and why we're trying to accomplish it and so forth. It becomes very, very clear. And when we start to emulate the bodhisattvas, when we start to try to act just like a bodhisattva, it becomes more of who we are, and then it becomes exactly who we are. And there isn't, any gap between, a sentient being coming to us and our immediate, and being maybe trying to harm us, and our immediate kind of thought of love and compassion. There's no gap. There's not there. Well, they are. It's just immediate. You hear it, and just the love and compassion pours out of you, and there's no way to have this kind of angry response. So what time is it? 8:18? Let me see if I can find the space. 8:21. Okay, so let's end there. Let's end on 4. I think that's quite a bit of information, and the book conveniently moved out of my place, and I don't have the I don't have the marker. So I guess that tells me it's time to end. So again, let's just I'd like to just do some Tara mantras, maybe 21. I don't have them all, so if I don't do exactly 21, forgive me. Just for any obstacles any of you are having, removal of, we know, Lorinda, Lori, we know the obstacles that we're having in our home, and etc. And we know that many of you have spoken with me and saying you have obstacles. We know Pari Rinpoche, last I knew, was in a coma, and Jeffrey Hopkins is going in for this major thing tomorrow. Really, we've lost so many individuals recently. If we go back 3 years, it's really scary. The amount of beings that we've lost that were so holy in all the lineages of Buddhism. So I'd like to just do some Tara mantras so that we don't have any of these obstacles in our lives, so that we can, make sure that we don't get separated from our teachers. When the emanation body of a Buddha leaves, it's not because they don't love you, it's because you don't have the condition for them to be here anymore. Some sort of karma. The Buddha doesn't have control over karma. We only can meet with these things if we can, if we have the conditions that are there. So let's make sure that we have the conditions to not be separated from the Lama, to not, be a vessel that can't see a teacher because of our karma. Because it said, the moon will reflect on as many pools as they're there, but you remove all the pools, there's no reflection. Likewise, if you don't have the condition, you don't have the karma for the Buddha to teach you the truth of suchness, the Buddha can't just wash away your negativities with water, remove suffering with hands, or give you his or her realizations. It's only by teaching the truth of suchness, but you have to be a vessel that can hear it. You have to be able to listen to it and be connected to it. 8 million beings, 7 million beings, billion beings, billion. I mean, how many of them have the karma to connect to this? How many of them could hear this class tonight and it wouldn't just sound like some crazy thing from Mars? Really, think about how lucky we are. Okay, so let's just do some Tara mantras and just imagine that we're being refilled and that all sentient beings are being refilled, that we're having all of our life force being refilled, all of our elements being refilled, all of our power being refilled, all of our merit being refilled, all of our vows and pledges being restored. Imagine that we just have this incredible process of purification that's taking place. And imagine you visualize any way you would normally visualize. You visualize the Tom at your heart with the surrounding mantras, with the long and short mantras, and so forth, and the Sanskrit alphabet going counterclockwise and clockwise, and then the mantra of dependent origination, if you can. That's the visualization of the wheel at your heart, or the wheel at the heart of Tara. But if not, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so let's do some Tara mantras and just imagine that we're trying to purify and bless. We know that Tara, and also make us more wise, because we know that Tara not only is a swift, because Tara is connected to the winds, makes things happen swiftly. We also know that the first Dalai Lama and many other lamas rely on Tara as a wisdom deity. So let's do some Tara mantras together. Om Tare Du Re So Ha. 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 Om Dare 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 Du Re So. I've been using mantras and my fingers to count when I do my physical therapy exercises. Because Aga said to rely on medicine Buddha with my, anything that I had for my illness. So I thought about it and I said, okay, when I do my 10 count, I'll do Teate Om Bekense Bekense Maha Bekense Bekense Raza Samagati Zoa. The Om Bekense Bekense Maha Bekense Bekense Raza Samagati Zoa. And then I count them on my fingers and I get 10. And I figured, wow, I got medicine Buddha mantras accumulate. This is great. Great physical therapy. I don't know if it's going to work for my back, but it'll work for my spiritual progress. Hopefully in the long run. So let's see. Prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. Thank you all for doing those mantras with me. I appreciate that. Makes me feel really connected to Rinpoche when we can practice Tara together. The prayer for the flourishing of Jeff Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish, that the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread. He offered a white crystal rosary to the sage who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practice according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for beings and doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Listening to explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three highest higher trainings, skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without class the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings past, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Mahayana, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. And just as an aside, it says heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. Sometimes you'll hear 84,000 Dharma bundles. Why is that? There are 4,000 extra for some reason. The Buddha's, during the time of the Buddha, when he was giving teachings, his students decided that he needed an attendant, and they assigned Ananda to be the attendant of Lord Buddha. And one of the requests Ananda made, he didn't say, sure, I'll do it right away, was that he was at every single teaching the Buddha ever gives from now on. So the Buddha gave 4,000 bundles of teachings before Ananda showed up, and then 80,000 bundles of teachings after Ananda. So this is why you see sometimes 84,000, because before Ananda there were 4,000, or 80,000 because after Ananda became the attendant of Buddha, he was there for every teaching, and then they count, okay, well, Ananda was definitely there at every teaching, so we say 80,000. So just a little aside, courtesy of Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdu. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Tsongkhapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this mantra. May your body, speech, and mind, and my body, speech, and mind, and all sentient beings that we're imagining are here with us, body, speech, and mind, be purified by Vajrasattva's mantra, imagining Vajrasattva in the space in front of you, inseparable from your root deity, inseparable from Khenso Geshe Wandak, imagining that light, rays, and nectars are coming from Vajrasattva, who's inseparable from your root guru. White light, rays, and nectars coming down, transforming into white ohms, raining down on you and all sentient beings and purifying yours and all sentient beings' body. Red light, rays, and nectars turning into red ahs and purifying yours and all sentient beings' speech. And blue light, rays, and nectar showering down, transforming into blue homes, and transforming yours and all sentient beings' mind into pure states of mind. So Om, Hom, white, red, blue, body, speech, mind, respectively being purified. Om Benzo Sato Samaya Manubalaya. Benzo Sato Seno Bhatishta, Dedo Me Baba, Suto Kaya Me Baba, Subokaya Me Baba, Anurada Me Baba, Zavazidi Me Prayacha, Zavakama Suche Me, Kitam Shiyam Guru Hom, Ha Ha Ho, Bhagavan, Savatata Gata, Benza Mame Munka, Benza Baba, Maha Samaya Sapa, Om, Hey. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama. Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junja Kalaraja Mo Rama, Judaja Junja, Ruda Rudong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Dunjo, Galarajim, Rama, Ajadaja Dunjo, Rulu Hunjo. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised the Supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the manifestation of the Buddha for compassion. in our world. We're so fortunate. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And a supplication to Khensur Geshe Wandak, written by me on the anniversary of his death, March 6, 2023. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khensur Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, Ah, Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears and elucidated the teachings of beings of three capacities. Now the sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness so they know who you really are. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm so glad you could be on, and so glad that everybody's, watching the YouTube videos too. I'm seeing that the teachings are getting out to more and more people. So don't forget to check them out and like them and do all this stuff. It's all good. Buddhist Center, YouTube. All right. I see people do this, so I think it may be important to say this for some reason. Please subscribe, and if you like it, hit the like button. All right. Take care. Thanks, everybody. I'm always praying for all of you, just so you know that. I hope you're praying for me.